everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're talking to someone who does not require an introduction. We are talking to Jerry, aka Moth, the Moth. I had a conversation with Moth previous to this one. That was for the book I wrote about Death Step and Minatory some time ago. The link to that can be found in the description box. The topics that we talk about today, some of those topics are also present in the book, but most of the topics in that conversation and this conversation are different. So if you want to get a holistic picture of the entire story of Moth, then I recommend checking out both. But this video is a good place to start. So if you know someone who's a Moth fan, share it with them. And before the interview starts, I will also play a latest release from Moth so that you're caught up, let's say. And let's jump in, shall we? Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yep, everything's cool.
Okay. First of all, hi.
Hello.
So where do you want to start?
I don't know.
Do you have anything specific in mind, or do you want me to just start with my questions?
You can start with questions. I don't really have much to say about myself.
We'll see about that. Okay, the discussion we had before, forget about that. We can start fresh. Okay?
Okay.
Let's go back to the time when you were not making electronic music.
I was 16. Oh, so I used to skateboard like hardcore, and so this was 16. So I'm pretty sure that's high school. Yeah, I was in high school. Someone actually broke into my locker, stole like a brand new complete deck that I had just got, and then my birthday was coming up, and then I had enough money to buy another skateboard, and then someone offered to sell me a guitar, and I was like, well, I guess if the guitar becomes like, I don't want to do it, I was like, I'll just sell it again and then just buy another skateboard. But I ended up just like sticking with it. So I ended up doing that for a pretty long time. That basically after that, I was just like doing home recordings, none of which was any good. It was all pretty much garbage. I did a couple of bands, but only like two of them really that did shows with, and then that didn't last because a whole thing where the dude went into rehab. That's a whole other story. And then we just never played again. And then that stagnated for a while. And then I kind of just went and going to college, and eventually I got into electronic music. But yeah.
You learned all of this on your own, the guitar, I mean?
Not at first. I got sent to this. It was a Paul Green School of Rock, which a lot of people like. I didn't like it because it's like they don't teach you music theory over there. They just teach you like power chords and the basic bare minimal of playing guitar. And then what they do is something where it's like they'll do like, I guess, like recitals, but they're like super lame because it's like a bunch of other kids that are like awful at their instruments. Not always, but usually. And then not that I'm amazing or anything, but so like they're like, oh, we're gonna do a Doors concert, so it's just like a bunch of kids, and you go paired in like random groups or something, and then but I didn't want to play any of the music that they were teaching, so I did that for maybe like a year or two, and then I got out of it and started like basically self-teaching, which I mean I would say like it probably taught me the good basis, but I didn't really go anywhere with it until like years later after I got like more into it on my own.
Mhm. Makes sense. So, what kind of music were they teaching you?
Just like generic radio rock, like we're gonna do Pink Floyd. Not, I don't know if that's radio. Well, it's on the radio a lot, but stuff like that, Led Zeppelin. Just I don't know if the word generic's correct, but I would just call it just because it's kind of like just music that appeals to majority of people rather than like they did do like random stuff for like oh we're gonna do like Slayer. I never got into any of those, but that was like more because like I was just starting off. They're probably not gonna throw me on like Raining Blood or anything like that, but.
And what kind of music were you
So,
into?
at that time, I was pretty much the only band I was listening to was like System of a Down and just bad like new metal. Not that System of a Down's bad by any means, but like Korn or Slipknot was like edgy teenager bullshit.
Did you perform any of
I was,
that in front of those people in the school?
no, I was pretty what's the word?
You're being the nice guy.
Like, I was like I was kind of always the loner because I just didn't really bother with people. I wasn't necessarily like jaded and bitter like I am now, but certainly added to that because was it grade school, high school? Probably when I became an asshole, but that was mostly just out of self-defense because I think it was my 8th grade, so grade school. They went around and checked everyone for like was it scoliosis, and then they're like, "Oh, you have scoliosis," and then I had to go to a chiropractor. They're like, "He does not have scoliosis. He has something called hiatus, which is like a slouching problem, which is probably for me just sleeping in class." So then they made me wear a back brace that wasn't like crazy visual, but it was uncomfortable as all hell. And then so people began to notice by the time high school, people in high school are monsters. So then I had to basically become like worse in order to compensate for that. So people would just not bother with me.
Wow, okay.
It's more or less just like self-defense mechanism.
That sounds like a lot for a high school kid, you know.
Oh yeah. I don't think I was really that, or I don't, whatever my reputation has of being blunt with people, it's probably from that. So it was mostly just that. And then, so high school, like I didn't do anything, like I didn't go to dances, I didn't go to prom, I didn't even bother with like, I was trying to get out of going to graduation, but of course my mom was like, "You're going to graduation."
Did you end up going to graduation?
No, I had to go. So, and then, they clapped for the wrong person. That was pretty horrible.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So,
You say that you did not have any friends, and you mentioned that you used to play with somebody else. So would that be counted as friend?
I mean, I had friends in high school, but they were very like minimal. I mean, like I probably had like maybe 4 friends. I mean, not that I was like really complaining about that. I mean, that was fine for me. Still don't. I mean, like I only still have like 6, well, minus 1, 5. Yeah. But then, I mean, I'm at Sean's house now. I'm outside smoking a cigarette, so he's in the other room, or he's inside the house. He's not. So, but so yeah, that's a whole other story. But yeah, I tend to just keep a close circle of people.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Understandable. Did you ever have this dream of people playing guitar that you want to be in a band and I don't know, make it big? Did you have anything like that?
Yeah, that's delusional younger person.
Delusional or not, that's the judgmental side of things.
Nah, I mean, I don't think I thought that probably when I think at the time when I was doing the band stuff, I just wanted to be in a band, and then that all kind of fell apart once I just realized like I didn't like working with other people or just too many inputs on what direction this should go. As to where I'm just like, nah, the hell with that. But no one wants to do that because it's basically like a democracy at that point. So that's like slowly when I started just recording stuff on my own, like eventually. I mean, and all that stuff wasn't good either. I mean, that's kind of, I think there's maybe a couple of things remaining of that still exists. Um, None of which are just like worth showing anyone, unless it's like, a nostalgic, someone's like, "Remember that awful CD you made?" I'm like, "Yeah."
So that's the transition to electronic music, was that?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason it really even came into that was when I was trying to home record, and then I had like FL. Started off when FL6, so this was years ago. Obviously, I think they're on like 12 now, but I don't use that. I started off with that, and then I was going back and forth with Audacity, which is fine for like if you're just like ripping stuff off the internet. But I don't use it for anything else other than that. But I started off in that, and then I was like, trying to figure out what I was doing, and then but I had kind of stopped for a little bit once I went into college. Like I kind of just wasn't even messing with it, and then they make it. I don't know why they make you buy an Apple. So it was like a white iMac. I don't think that's even a thing anymore, but it was like a little white laptop. When I bought that for college, it came with GarageBand. Then I would just get bored and start messing around with that. GarageBand's pretty bad for anything. They pretty much just use it for, well, just because I've gone through those libraries, like you can hear them in all like these bad like pharmaceutical commercials. They're just like the most generic loops. So like I'm like that's from GarageBand, but I got that, so I started messing around with that, and then I think it was like maybe my second year of college is when I started. I was listening to like off and on electronic music, but it wasn't none of it was dubstep, but it was maybe like Aphex Twin and maybe like some industrial, like old Nine Inch Nails or because Sean or Apocryphal, he was always listening to industrial, so he was listening to like Skinny Puppy, which I liked, but there's a couple other ones I can't remember, but I mean he would probably talk your head off on that. I don't listen to industrial really like that, but I was off and on listening to stuff of that. I don't know, not necessarily genre, but that like kind of quasi whatever. I don't know the word, but it was kind of just like hanging there in the background, and I was listening to like typical black metal and grindcore and stuff like that. So it was kind of like a slow transition where I heard dubstep and then kind of put it all together as like one whole thing.
So you kind of your dubstep influences and obviously your metal influences kind of started showing up in your, let's say, experiments with FL Studio, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I started off, I wasn't trying to combine anything. I was just like, oh, this is just, I guess it's just the whole appeal because the bands I liked at the time were probably like Burzum and like other one-man band things. Mostly Burzum. I was just like hardcore Burzum fan. So I was like, oh, I can do all this and it's just one person and I don't need to
You don't need a
bother.
democracy. You don't need to listen to other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. I don't have to take a vote on an intro. You just write it. So I started doing that, and then I mean, it was pretty horrible. There was like actually pre-Moth stuff that wasn't even dubstep. I believe Sean has it that hopefully that never sees the light of day. Um, I don't even know what you would classify that. It's just weird loops and just yeah, it wasn't good.
Is that up anywhere?
No, no, absolutely not. It's on a hard drive somewhere in his house. And probably before that, there was like a weird time period where I was just making noise in Audacity with between me and him because known Sean for years, so we were just making I don't know if it was harsh noise or it was just kind of bizarre making weird noises. This had nothing to do with music. I don't know why we were doing it, but it obviously added to it. So like he would send something like, "Oh, listen to what I did to what was it? The song from Wizard of Oz, Somewhere Under the Rainbow," like running like I don't even know what it was, but just like how bad we could like ruin the audio. I don't know why. I think we were because we were still like at the time obsessed with YouTube hoops when that was like a big thing, but that's like really old. So we are just doing with audio. So by the time, I mean, it's funny that it took forever for that to tie into what it became, but that was like kind of like pre me even knowing anything about dubstep. But yeah, I'm like rambling.
That's all right. You knew Sean from when?
Let's see. Originally it was in Port Richmond, and then I moved to the Northeast. Well, that is Northeast. I moved to the suburbs some point during high school. I don't know dates for anything.
That's okay.
I met Sean in the woods.
In the woods.
Yeah, he was with other people. I wasn't just like walked up on him. I was like, "You want to be my friend?" It wasn't anything like that.
Are you serious?
No, it was like I met him in the woods, and he was with some other dude that knew the people that I was with,
Oh, I see.
and then I ended up just talking to him, and then yeah. So I mean, that's literally, which is funny because I won't even we don't even talk to the people or like we're like the the middleman on that relationship, but that's really how I met Sean. Just I met him in the woods once.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny story to tell. I met him in the woods.
Horrifying, but yeah, that's literally. I never even thought about it till just now. I met Sean in the woods of all places. But yeah,
I've seen you with Sean a lot of the times.
yeah, he literally lives like 4 blocks away. So I was gonna meet him eventually, probably. And then So I'm over at his house pretty much every weekend because it's pretty much my drinking buddy. So
Drinking buddy, music buddy, life buddy, I say.
yep.
So there was a phase after this initial noise mess up, and I think in 2013 is when your music actually started to become something more than just noise, right?
I'm trying to think. So when I started off, I was making it was called minimal or whatever at the time. Now they would just call it, rhythm or whatever now. But so that was on Dub Cartel. Um, that's on Beatport still somehow. And then I did so the second album. I think I did. I can't. I think I did Dub Cartel. Then I did Erie Cartel because they were related. And then I did. I think I did another one for Dub Cartel that I think was just called the Moth EP. Or no, I I don't remember what the hell it was called, but it's the one that has like the if you just Google Moth wallpaper or Mothman, it's like I just took the cover and just put it on there, put my name on it. But it's like not even creative.
People will sue you for
It's
copyrights.
yeah. And then after that I got on it's the label that Flux Pavilion, I think Borgor was on it too. Oh, Shift. I did Shift and that was the New Age EP. So this was all like, way before I was just trying to, I don't know, not necessarily fit in, but I was just doing what everyone else was doing and trying to get good at it so that, like, I don't know, to make some kind of name. Because this is probably when I was starting to have the insane idea that, oh yeah, I can be famous and do this. I don't know why, but yeah, I had that ambition, which slowly over time went right in the trash by the time I was making Death Step or whatever.
I
So
think
did
you're so
that, and
famous.
then yeah, I mean, I did that, and then it kind of stagnated for a bit. I mean, because while this is all happening, I wasn't playing shows because I didn't know anyone and no one bothered. So, I mean, there's probably only been like maybe 15, maybe less Moth shows ever, all of which were pretty horrendous, which is like 8 different things going on with that. But regardless, I think it was after that was when because it was kind of like, I felt like I was doing everything correctly, it just wasn't going anywhere. And then that kind of turned into, I guess, more of a depression thing. It's like I don't know what the hell people want from me, and then that kind of turned into like I don't really care about this anymore. I'm just gonna do whatever whatever I want. And then that kind of just slowly because I was at that point. If you listen to the first one, the one that had like Blue Velvet on it, I was just trying to be like Sluggo. It was basically like the Sluggo Helicopter Showdown, the wrestler thing, which is really old, but if you listen to that, you can clearly tell that's all I was trying to do. And then I realized like I really wasn't that good at it, even though they put that out. But I did that, and then I kind of like regress, or I don't know what the word, like slowed down because I was like, oh, well, I can't really do that. So it's like maybe I should try doing the more like deep tracks and more like simpler. Oh, I mean, I thought it was simpler than having like 50,000 different synths that are doing 80 different patterns, which it is. So I mean, I did that, and then by the time I stopped caring about, what I was doing in the sense of like, I'm not really trying to impress anyone. I'm just making whatever I want to hear. And that was, I did, it was like a free EP called Duality. And that was kind of like the start of it. And then I kind of stopped caring even more. And then that's when I did, the song Confession, which I gave out for free. And that's when Abducted contacted me about like, oh, do you want to do an EP or whatever? It's like, yeah. So I kind of just made whatever I felt like, which is the Legion EP. And then, yeah, that blew up. So then everyone was like, "Oh, who's this guy?" And by that point, I didn't really care anymore. So and like my experience with trying to talk to like other producers was just awful because like everyone's like, I don't know, like once they get famous to an extent, they kind of don't want to bother.
Anything specific
Talking.
turned you off?
Well, there's obviously obvious things that happen to basic. I mean, it kind of happens to anyone who is trying to talk to someone who's bigger than them because usually it's like, you're terrible, so I don't want to talk to you. It's not necessarily that, but that's the vibe it always comes off as, and like almost like you're beneath them, which to some extent you are in the social class of the music industry or lack of. I don't know what you would say, but that's kind of the whole thing. Like that plus like people just like rip you off like just blatantly like a collab and then they just slap their name on it, and if you're not famous enough, if you're not big enough, nobody cares. because that happened to me like twice. And if you make a big stink out of it, like it's really just gonna backfire on you because if you don't have the fan base, they're like, well, no one cares, kind of thing. And I mean, like that's whatever. But I mean, like, yeah, it's just kind of I don't know. It's a whole thing. I don't know.
That's fine. I asked that question about your initial days because I wanted to know what happened when your music actually started getting recognized by people. What was going on in your head? That's what I wanted to ask.
Oh,
But again, you said
well,
you did not care that much.
yeah, I mean, because it was like I had tried. I don't know. I guess it's like once I stopped trying to appeal to people, and I'd rather start to appeal to myself. That's kind of when I started to like just kind of do whatever I felt like, in the sense of like when I started, they used to tell you, well, all the like videos like, oh, just use the dubstep production bible, and I forget what the website is, dubstep.net, or it's still up. It's a terrible production thing, and when you follow that to the T, like it's kind of like you're kind of already starting off bad because there's no exact recipe to making something produce what like if you have like if you're making drums, you should not always have the kick at like a certain volume because every kick is different. So that's a terrible. Like I don't know if it necessarily says that, but it says stuff that's kind of questionable. Like I wouldn't follow that, and it's kind of when I stopped caring, I kind of stopped caring about what I'm supposed to be doing and just did what I felt like it should be. And then in that sense, it was kind of like, well, this sounds better, so that's wrong. At least it's wrong to me. I mean, it might be right to someone else, but it was kind of like once I did stuff my way rather than doing it the way people told me to do it. Kind of in that, I guess, in that realm. But it's I don't know. I kept doing shit like that, and then yeah, I mean that's roughly it.
I remember one video where you were trying to make a tutorial about how to make fan snares using, I don't know exactly what can it was. It was some kind of a metal can. You remember that?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was. I went through a hardcore phase of just recording. I mean, I've gone through all like I think like Legion is all virtual. Like that's like I think it's almost all massive, and then Disconnected is a different synth, which is that one in FL. What is it called? Not Serum, the Harmer. And Harmer is more like you put your own recording. You don't have to, but that's how I was using it. And then the Void is I'm not even most of that isn't even synths. That's just destroyed audio that I just kind of sat there and just sculpted into whatever it was. But yeah, but yeah, I went through all the different. Like it's kind of funny because it's just like different eras. I was doing different things just to try to like get away from what everyone else was doing, which ironic that now everyone almost does it that way. Like that became almost like a standard, and I was trying my best to get away from it.
From those times, or maybe even after, do you remember working on any specific project or any specific EP or LP?
uh, what do I remember? Just working on any of them?
More like, were you invested in any EP or LP more than usual?
Okay. Probably the Void to some extent. Disconnect like the Disconnected, like that's not even a clever name. That was kind of just like in limbo when I made that. Just horrible, just mindset, or at least I thought at the time, because the Void was much more worse and depraved when I wrote that. I don't even remember writing most of the Void because it took like not that I was sitting there waiting. I think it's like probably like a year because it's like 23 tracks or something. So that's probably like a year of sitting on tracks. But like I wasn't like coming home and like working my fingers to the bone writing that. It's just as soon as I was writing, I felt like writing. I just wrote it. But yeah, the Void probably because I had sat on so much. Just because then I was like, well, I don't really know what I'm gonna do with all this. And then Playborn wanted me to put out like EPs, and I was like, well, I don't really want to do that anymore. And then it kind of occurred to me, I was like, if I put out 23 tracks and someone buys the album, that's 23 tracks that I just got money for. Not that I was interested in the money, but in the sense that because I don't know, for the longest time, I was under the delusion that if you do well on Beatport, like you get big. It does not work that way at all, because like the last 3 albums that I put out or EPs, whatever, they were all #1 top dubstep album on Beatport. And I was like, oh, well, if I have 23 tracks and someone buys it, like that's gonna shoot my stats up pretty high. So I was like, I'll just put out 23 tracks. So just immediately will go to number one, and then people can't yell at me or deny that it's on there, even though it's more just like a marketing ploy, a poor one. But yeah, it was on there. But yeah, the Void, I spent probably like a year, maybe probably a little more than that. But yeah, I feel like I probably spent more time on it. The mix downs are kind of questionable on some tracks, and other ones are like perfectly fine. But it was just like the mindset when I was doing it.
But again, it's the fact that the people who make their own stuff judge their own stuff the hardest. So I wouldn't rely on your judgment.
No, yeah, of course not. Because people are asking me about stuff, I'm like, oh, that song's trash. They're like, it's like my favorite song in the world. I'm like,
Exactly.
like I'm sorry to hear that.
The way you talk about Vision EP, it makes me, want to weep sometimes. But then I'm like, sure, you're allowed to say what you have to say. I still like it.
Yeah, it's funny because that's like literally every producer now. Like I don't know. I would almost be kind of offended if someone's like, "No, the song's great." I'm like, "Didn't you write it?" Like, kind of an asshole.
Is it bad to like your own stuff?
I mean, it's okay to like it, but I don't think you should be so forward with it. It's just pompous.
Why not?
I don't know.
I mean, if it's good music, it's good
I don't
music.
think people should be too proud of their own work. I don't know. It comes off like condescending to me. Like you should be like, if at best you say it's like, it's all right. Like that means it was really good. If you say it's great, then it's just like, get off your high horse.
Yeah, I mean, I get your point that being humble has its place, but you have to like what you're doing. Otherwise, how would you keep doing it? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, that's probably how I ended up not doing it.
Speaking about that, you stepped away from music for quite some time in the middle. You want to talk about that?
Sure. I did The Void, and then I think I put out a couple more tracks, maybe a little bit after that, or not immediately, probably because I just needed to take a break. And then Plagueborn, that all went to shit. And then I kind of just was like, I really don't want to deal with people anymore. And then that kind of just went from a hiatus to almost I wouldn't say it's absolutely permanent. It's mostly permanent in the sense that I'm probably not going to kill myself and try to make all these tracks for like, they're going to be big for about a month and then no one's going to care, except for obviously the hardcore fans, which still blows my mind that exists or is a thing. Like it's just me on the computer, like there's nothing special going on. And then that I can't even think right now. Sorry, I'm like hungover. So what is it?
You need a reminder?
Yeah, I already forget what we were talking about.
So we were talking about your time away from music.
Oh yeah. Too long. No, yeah, I'm not gonna just like I'll put out tracks randomly if I have the inspiration to do so. I mean, I'm still working on music off and on. Not I mean, I have some Moth stuff sitting on my computer that's just never gone anywhere. There's like a lot of that actually. But I mean, I work on like side projects that I just don't talk about. That kind of like I mean, there's a good portion of the one that's done, and I mean, that might actually get put out. That is actually dubstep, or I don't know what it would be, but we'll see. That's kind of like a lot of work, and since it's like a whole concept. I mean, it's mostly parody music, but it'll probably get big just because it's like just stupid. But I mean, that's not big. But I mean, like people will know. I mean, like I can't believe that someone wasted time making. In that sense, yeah, they probably know. They probably won't necessarily know that it's me.
But somehow that kind of stuff, people like it.
No, I know. So I mean, like it's more of a passion project.
Sure. I hope you put it out sometime soon.
Yeah. I think the original hiatus was not meant to be permanent. It just kind of turned into that because I just realized like I can do other things and sit in my room and make music all day, like drink.
Seriously. I mean, you could drink and make music, Hello.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
That's okay. So yeah, you were saying.
So what was I talking about? The shadow ban. So like I have something like 7,000 followers. If I post something, like 14 people see it, and that's like over the course of a month. So then I just was like, well, this is like beyond stupid. Um,
That disappointed you?
well, yeah, I mean, like, cause you're like, it's you try to put out music for people to hear it, and now you have people trying to get you to pay them so that you can put out something for free anyway, and it's like why can't I just, the people already liked my page, can they just get the news feed of it? And it's like, no, we want money. So I was like, well, I'm not paying you. Like I already don't make enough money as is, so it's like, well, that's out of the question. So then I just start just. I mean, I always post it on SoundCloud, like that's always been my go-to, but it always helps to, post the link on the fan page or the Facebook page, or I used to. Now I don't even go on it. I randomly get like emails from people asking me like random stuff, but not so much anymore. But that's fine.
Do you get any
But
crazy
yeah,
emails from fans saying, I don't know, you changed their lives or stuff like that?
yeah, quite a lot, and I'm like, I don't know how. A lot of people are like, it really helped me out of a bad time, and I'm like, did you listen to my music? Like, it's literally the definition of it. I mean, perhaps it's more like, wow, I thought I was having a hard time. This dude's like screwed. I don't know. But yeah, like once you're gone for so long, like the momentum's gone in the sense of like, I don't know, like you're kind of out of the race at that point. And in order to get back to where you were, you have to kind of like haul ass, or I don't know what the dubstep variant of that would be, or whatever the term, how it should be used. But I basically was just kind of like, well, this is kind of now more work than it's really worth. And on top of that, like it kind of didn't really even seem worth it because it's like I don't really have anything to do with that scene anymore anyway. And most of my music is just, I think I even said in the book, it's Minatory is mostly just the people who are making it or the people who are listening to it. Like a lot of the people who are listening to it are mostly the people making it. Yeah, it's just so much time went by, and then it's like I don't know. I just kind of, in more words than, or I just burnt myself out. Like that was basically it. Just trying to do anything with it. I made probably like 800 songs. I mean, only maybe like 70 of them saw the light of day. But
800 songs.
I have like hard drives of garbage just stackpiled. And then none of it, I don't even, none of it's named correctly. It's just me punching the keyboard when I'm done with it. Like, what's a quirk? Like, it's just random. Because I don't save anything correctly, then I lose it, and then it's just gone. It's a simple fix, but I didn't do it by labeling things.
Maybe you could go back to all of those and get inspired and probably release something called Trash EP or something. I don't know.
I've considered doing something like that, like just like the lost, the lost takes, because a lot of them is just like if I like a lot of people, they're like, oh, I spent like a month on this. I'm like, if I don't write like 99 or 95% of the song in like an hour, then it's probably garbage. So I'll write basically the whole song out, and then maybe it might sit on my computer for about a month, and then the rest of it is just me like, oh, this kick needs to be lower. Like it's like the bulk of the writing is usually done in like an hour or two or something like that, and the rest of it's just fine tuning what I did. That's about it. Like I'm not really, the writing process was never really the problem. It's more like sitting there and tinkering with like the mix downs.
Would you believe it if I said that people are actually excited that you're back? I hope you're back, assuming that you're back.
I'm back for 5 minutes. Then I'll give them the old Irish goodbye.
Better than 0 minutes, you know.
I mean, like I put out, I don't even know how to say it. It's my own song, Angelus, Libido. Like I was going to come back because I played a show, which is hilarious because I basically told everyone it straight up, like, don't bother me for shows or stuff like that. And then what was it? I flew to Oregon during COVID, like when the whole country gets shut down and they're like no more concerts. And of course, I'm flying to Oregon to play a concert in a chapel in the woods.
How did that
That
go?
was No, it went terrible. They seemed to like it, but I was like, it was absolutely awful. I mean, I had a great time there, and the people there were nice. But as far as like me performing goes, it was pretty awful. It's like I had really not practiced, and I was kind of just like, oh, it's like riding a bike. I can do this, and it was like, oh wow, I really forgot how to mix like that. So it was kind of like a train wreck. The whole thing was a train wreck. So that whole thing was funny. Because they just wanted to hear Minatory, and that was it. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Because like usually whenever I played shows, I was like a last minute thought thrown onto a bill. It'd just be like all these random dudes, and it's just like, oh, Death Step and Minatory, and they always like, so like I'd play, and then the people are like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, and then because I'm such like, by the time most of the times when I was playing this, just because I hate it. I hate going into like crowded stuff like that. I remember it's like I think like the second show I played in Philly, and the promoter guy was like, don't look too happy that you're here. It's funny, all I wanted to do was play shows, and then when I finally got to it, I absolutely hated it. Just like I just like so I was always just like way too drunk because I was so nervous about most of it. But by the time I would play, like everyone's like, "Oh, you got to feel the crowd out," and I'm like, "I'm not doing that. I'm just gonna play my music, get off stage, then pay me, please, so that I can leave." I played like a show in Baltimore once with Sean when he was still in Recreating, and like driving like this awful minivan that I had at the time that couldn't go over like 70, otherwise would like overheat. And like the whole time, I'm like, oh, I think I have the flu. I'm like cold sweat, and then I'm played my set and I was fine. I was like, wow, it was like the worst stage fright thing ever. Which is funny because that was actually probably like one of my better shows, but it was just annoying because I had to like drive there. It was like an hour. It's just I can't go over 70. It's just like highway the whole way there. Then like, all right, let's drink, and then you're like, all right, well, you're gonna have to give me like an hour or two to like sober up because I got to drive all the way back to Philly, and it's
I remember you mentioning that you used to, drink so much that you would pass out.
oh yeah, I've blacked out like two or three. Oh, well, I played a show in Philly with Sean back to back, and it was like really weird because it was like people from like Monster Cat, and I was like, why are we playing a show with people from Monster Cat? And he's like, I have no idea. And then like people who like collab with like Bass Nectar and shit. I was like, that's odd. And it was like in a little like hole in the wall like crappy like club thing that was like in a I don't know what it was, but and then like all I remember is like we were in the middle of the set and I was just they're like, oh, here's your drink tickets, and I was like, I'm good. Like I have like a bottle of whiskey in my school bag. I mean, it's DJ equipment, and then yeah, and then it's just like a whole like we're just sat on the DJ booth, and I was just in there drinking this like I think it's Jim Beam, pretty sure, and then yeah, I remember I dropped a 16-bit machine gun, and then all I remember after that, I sat down, and then I lifted my head up, and the cops were outside, and they're like, "Yeah, we're shutting the club down," and I was like, what the hell happened? He's like, yeah, you just sat down in the middle of the set and went to sleep. It's like, oh my god. Like, he's like, I just finished the setup, and everyone was like, what happened to you? I was like, he's taking a nap, a siesta. I don't know.
What was Sean doing then?
He just finished the show because it was like me, him, and then I just just disappeared. So he just just continued to play without me. I mean, luckily, otherwise it'd been even worse if it was just me by myself and I just sat down in the middle of the set and just went to sleep. Yeah, I mean, that was probably like the worst one I did, but in the sense of just like drank too much. Most of the ones, it's like I just became overly conscious of it, but as soon as it's over, then it's just like a free for all. I mean, unless I'm not driving, but that's a whole other story.
So get back to the original question. Are you back?
Probably not in the shape or form that I was. I'll just kind of put out. Yeah, I mean, like I'll put out tracks every now and then. That's about it. I mean, like, yeah, I'm not gonna. I don't. I think it's my name is probably the biggest thing it's going to be is like the random playlist on YouTube which have like obnoxious amount of plays where I'm like that's insane, but like stuff like that, that's about it. I mean, I'm most comfortable just like putting out the songs and then people just go, oh, it was good. Like that's about all I need from it, because like I barely made any like I don't like it's funny because you meet people who are like, oh, you're gonna do this, like come to Europe. I'm like, who the hell do you think I am? Like, I'm not Skrillex. Like, I'm not Skrillex. Like, people are like, oh, when are you gonna play a show in Mexico? And I'm like, there's like if I go anywhere, there's probably like it'd be like everyone else's fans would be like 3 Moth fans. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying like there's a lot of them obviously out there, but they're not condensed into one area. So it's kind of just like not really any point for me to like fly out for like 3 people.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have a reason to not fly out.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I also hate flying too, so I already had enough reasons.
Right. So back to What do you think is happening right now, and about the music that is going on in the Minatory and SFC?
Um, I would say like you'll hear random glimpses of stuff that's like, oh, that's interesting. But it's not nothing like I don't think it's really evolved in the sense of like it hasn't like gone beyond whatever I started it with. It's kind of just sitting in the same like general area. Like it hasn't like it's not like I left and came back and I was like, this is not related to anything. Yeah, it's still in the same like I guess like starting grounds, or I mean it's still rather young as far as a genre that's for what that is anyway. I would say when I first started making it and calling it Minatory, the the stuff that was coming out at that time was a lot more amateur. As for now, it's kind of caught up to where I was like hanging around at, and so I would say if it's going to go anywhere, it's probably going to be within like the next couple years if it's still if if it stays like that. But it's I would say like I kind of like flew through to a point, and then everyone caught up, and then I quit, and now everyone's getting to where I was, and then so it's kind of just now, in my opinion, starting to get somewhere. Um, it's kind of like yeah, I would say it's more. It's kind of starting to get out of the like the incubation period.
You know what's missing?
What's that?
The rebellious Jerry that wanted to be different from everybody else. I guess that's missing.
Oh.
At least that's how I feel,
hmm
So many people have left the scene who were in the beginning and who started all of this, and it feels like it's kind of in an orphan stage and trying to figure
Yeah.
things out on its own.
Yeah, it's I mean it's hilarious enough that it's like I named the genre and this is a thing somehow still. um that whole thing is just still kind of baffling to me that it's even taken on as much life that it has. Because like I just like when we were doing that, like we are just being pompous. Like it's like, oh, this is a new genre, blah blah blah. Like
And this shall be
that's all.
called
Like,
Minatory.
yeah, that was the attitude behind it, and then it became what it is now, which is hilarious. But at least you say Minatory correctly. I can't stand British people and they call it Minatory, and I'm like, please stop calling it.
I mean, I used to call that before, but I heard you speaking.
Yeah,
So it's like this, you always read it on the screen. You never hear it from people who pronounce it. So unless it comes from you who actually made the word, it wouldn't be possible for
yeah,
people to pick up the actual spelling because it's a made up word.
yes. Well, it's even funnier because like I popped. We were like, I had like I don't know, it was probably like beginning of the year, and then me and Sean were on the couch drinking. I'm like, I wonder if there's like Minatory tutorials on YouTube, like if there's any new ones. And like it was like a naughty step or some shit, and it's like my family tries Minatory. And I'm like, oh my god, that's
I
so
saw
cringe.
that.
And he kept saying Minatory, and I'm like, the hell's Minatory? And then I'm like, wait, all right, hold on, I'm gonna Google it. How do you pronounce Minatory? And it's like Minatory. I was like, all right. And then I was like, yeah, it's Minatory. And then I was like, well, it's the same. I was like, even though it's Minatory and they're saying Minatory, I was like, well, if I want to listen to UK Garage, I call it UK Garage, even though it's spelled garage, but it's garage in the sense like it comes from England, so I call it. Because when someone says UK Garage, I'm like, you sound like an idiot. Like, but yeah, it's Minatory. It's not Minatory, anyone.
I don't get these subtleties. I'm just trying to, wing it at the pronunciation.
Yeah, but it's just funny because it's whenever British people say it like so enunciate, like Minatory, and I'm like, ugh. Like it's just Minatory. Like you're going too far with it.
Have you heard of Dungeon Minatory?
Um, I heard Vince or Venom, which is so funny because they're like, "Oh, you should really listen to Vince is putting out like Dungeon Inventory," and I was like, "What the hell is that?" And I never listened to it once, but I was like, it's weird because I was always a fan of Vince's music. We like never talked though, like ever. I mean, like we've like randomly chatted, but we never like hardcore talked like that. But I always would talk to Osiris or Luke from Ireland because he would talk to Vince and they did all those collabs together. But I was always liked his music. But yeah, they were telling me to listen to it, and then I was listening to the interview you did with the other guy, Vicious
Card.
or Scarred, same guy, right?
Yeah.
Same. And then I was like, oh yeah, I was like, someone was telling me about Dungeons, and I'm like, I don't know what that even is. Then you guys described it, and I was like, oh, I'll have to look at it. I never got around to it, but I mean, I probably will when I get a chance. But yeah, I don't know what it sounds like.
I mean, I have listened to some stuff, and like I mentioned before, I can identify it if I am listening to one. But if you ask me what exactly it is,
Mhm.
uh, apart from what Keenan mentioned, I have no idea what it is. In terms of how it sounds, I cannot explain it.
No, yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Are you currently working on any projects besides those that you mentioned before?
I have like a side project that I'm doing that's like all hush hush, but I don't know. That's the one that's more like parody music because it might go a little too far, but that's why it's funny to me. But that's about it. I mean, like I'll mess with like guitar every now and then if I'm bored. Because like now I don't really have nearly as much time as I did when I was mostly when I did the void I was like unemployed, so it's probably why there's a lot amount of music. Yeah, I've had like 50 jobs. They're all terrible. The newest one I have now is half decent, but I just got done working a year at Amazon, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
I remember you calling it absolute hell.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. And they're like, it's just like they're just up your ass the entire time.
You being you, you probably don't like listening to people.
No, it's that plus like I mean I worked there for a year. I did not get like one friend out of that business, and not that like they were all the people were terrible or anything like that. It's just like when you get there, you're just like it's like as soon as you step in the door, you're like I just want to leave. And the pay wasn't even good, and it was awful. But I mean, like it paid the bills. And believe it or not, before that, I was working in the kitchen. Before that, I was an Uber driver for a while. That was awful. What else did I do? I worked in Blockbuster until they closed. That was my first job. I worked in a daycare for like half a year, which is almost unbelievable. But yeah, I did that.
Did the kids like you?
Yeah, they're all right. I mean, it was like it was like an after school thing for like a Catholic school. So like parents who couldn't like pick their kids up immediately. It was like one of those things. So it was like 2 hours after like when I was in college, I would go there. You watch them for like 2 hours. They get picked up. Sometimes it's longer if the parents like suck and don't pick their kids up immediately on time. So I did that. Did a bunch of construction warehouse jobs. I mean, I'm doing better. A lot. This is probably right now best I've been financially like ever. So that's pretty good. So there's that to look forward to.
Good for you.
Yeah, finally.
I hope it gets better.
Yeah. As far as being 33 and living at home, and all your siblings have gotten married and moved out, and I'm obviously the middle child. That's not obvious enough.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Are there signs that says that I'm the middle child?
It's usually like the exact definition of someone who acts like this.
Oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah. So everything seems to be working well. So we'll see. I'm still like adjusting to like like a 8-hour job because I've been I was working part time just because it's all I could get before, and then COVID hit, and then everyone was basically because I was working in a restaurant when COVID hit, so that was the end of that. So then I did Amazon. Now I'm actually working like an actual job, like a career job. So like I don't have to keep unless I really screw it up, which is going to be pretty hard because it's like a union thing. So basically, it's almost impossible to get fired.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
That's most of the questions I have.
Oh, okay.
I did not really have any agenda, to be honest. I just wanted to talk to you.
Oh no, it's fine. I mean, I always like when I first saw the videos popping up, I was like, or when you first contacted me about like, oh, I'm gonna do a book, I was like, it's about time someone like mentioned me somewhere. No, it's like that's pretty cool. Like,
I'm surprised that it did not happen before.
it's just funny to me because I was like, it's like you would think something like this would already exist because there was like, I remember like maybe like it's like an old BBC documentary about like dubstep. It was like probably like Scream, Benga, Rusco era, which is like how I started.
That was
So I always
ages
started,
ago.
so- Yeah, that's like super old. So I mean, like it was just weird that like the head came out and within a month they're like making a documentary about it, and then this has been around for like a couple of years, and they're just like no one wants to even touch it because it's kind of just like the redheaded stepchild of the EDM scene because either you're in it or you're like disgusted by it.
Exactly. There's no middle ground.
I mean, that never really bothered me because I always felt like, well, at least when I was making regular like dubstep or whatever, bro step or whatever, I don't care. But it was like I always felt like I was already pushed to the side like the entire time. Like, oh well, he's not friends with anyone big, so the hell with him. That's how it always felt to me. Like it's a giant club and you're not in it, so that's how it always came off to me.
It's strange how this community works. I mean, But yeah, the thing is, I used to think that there are people who are, mean, and I don't know. Since I'm the probably one of the rarest females in the scene, I
Mhm.
all I had this insecurity that I might be treated badly, but I was surprised that people are actually nicer than their music makes them sound.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people always were saying to me, my music's angry. I was like, I didn't get that impression at all, which is quite the opposite. No, you're fine. But yeah, like, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff like that. But it was funny because I just like I would go over to Sean's house and be like, "Oh, there's a new Death video. Gotta watch it." And then we're just like reading the facts off. I'm like, "Yeah, America."
You're talking about my video?
Yeah, the geography one.
Oh,
And then
okay.
and then we're watching it, and it's like substep infobase. I'm like, God damn it, I forgot about him. I forgot that that was a thing. Because in the book, it's like, who's the first thing? And I was like, I forget what I said in the book. And then on the video, it's like substep infobase. I was like, oh shit, I forgot about him. Like, sound like a goddamn idiot.
That's all right. I mean, speaking to him, Substep Infobase, it also sounded like he felt like the outsider, and people kind of did not consider him seriously because he was making stuff that was way different than what everybody else was making. So yeah, I guess that's the main problem with anybody who's trying to do anything different.
Yeah. Well, it's that, and then like, because I was coming from like a metal back. Well, same thing with him. And then like, you go to these shows, and it's just like hippies, and you're like, yeah, I shouldn't be
People
here.
expect something, and you play something, and they're like, "What is happening?"
Yeah, because it's like eh, like the first show I think I went to was Excision. This was like years ago. I think I paid like $10 to see like Excision in like a club. Like you've never even that would never even happen now. So it's. But I remember like the first time I walked in, like I didn't really know what to expect because I didn't really. The only person I knew listening to dubstep was Sean. So I had no idea what the scene looked like. And then I went in and they're all wearing like beads and have their crystals out, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. So like whenever those people would try to like talk to me or they don't, the best part is just because I have the mask. So once I take the mask off, like no one knows who the hell I am. And I can just disappear into the crowd.
You have a mask?
Yeah, there's a moth mask.
I've never seen your mask.
Yeah, there's a moth mask. The original one, it's the same mask. It was the first. It was like an executioner mask, and then it had red LEDs. And then I played a show in Baltimore. The first show I did with it, and immediately realized that you can't see anything with LEDs coming out of your eyes. So I was like blind, like the whole it's so bad. And I had used like this Halloween black hairspray paint, this like temporary hair dye. Because I didn't have spray paint. I didn't want to spray paint on a mask and then have to breathe in the fumes. So I sprayed this Halloween shit on it. And then like I took the mask off and it was just like all over my face. It was like the dirt ball. So I was like, what the hell's going on? But and they like it's like says it was temporary. It took like 2 days to get that shit off. And it's just like smearing, like it was like oil paint or something. But
So much more temporary.
yeah, seriously. I mean, like, and for like years after that, whenever I used the mask, like I would get on my hand. So it's that was like the first iteration of it. It slowly deteriorated because I played a show in Philly, and then the guy like legit just like screwed me on money. It was pretty, I guess, humiliating because it was like in front of everyone. And then I like flipped out, and then I just threw or I buried the mask in my yard like a whack job and like a drunken rage. And then I'm trying to think. Something happened where I was I forgot that I just assumed that I lost it, and I was like, I don't know what the hell happened to that thing. I was like, whatever. It's like I'm playing.
You forgot about that whole business?
Yeah, I had zero recollection. That's what I mean. Like I was in the yard like a couple years later, and I was like, what the hell is in the dirt here? And I pulled out the mask, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that's horrific. And it was like under a bush, and then most of the mask had deteriorated because it was like burlap, and then it turned into what it is now. And I just instead of having the hairspray, I just airbrushed it because I had like an airbrush tip. Which I mean, it looks a lot better because that happened, but and it's actually a lot more, wearable. The original version of it, like it would like turn and you couldn't see out the eye holes even without the LEDs. It was just like a nightmare to wear. I think I have a couple videos of the actual LED one, like in actual full working condition, like on my like I think on my Google, but yeah, that was the only show I used the LEDs with. So every time anyone saw that, they're like, "Oh, you're gonna put the eyes on?" I'm like, "No, it's like straight up blind. Like I couldn't even read the CDJs, like to get like the track list. I was just hitting next. Like, ugh.
I guess it worked.
Yeah, I mean, but that was like one of the shows that wasn't like a complete like nightmare. Like that one went okay actually. Yeah.
You were too distracted to get to mess it up, I guess. It sounds bad if I say it like that.
No, yeah, it's fine. The but yeah, it was just like that was a whole ordeal. But yeah, I got rid of most of this. Like I don't know, I think I went too big with it, and then ironically, once it just like fermented, it's like this is a better mask anyway. It looks like because it was just a Halloween dollar store zombie mask, and then I was like, I don't want to wear a bag on my head because that's stupid. It's like, why don't I just stitch the bag to the mask so that, like it still looks like a face? So when the bag basically almost all completely disintegrated, it was just like a weird bag material like stitched into like this mutant's face, and I was like, yeah, this works.
I think it's ironic that a mask that is used to, play music that is about death and I don't know, all sorts of dark things.
Yeah,
The mask having such story adds a lot of value.
yeah. There's a bunch of stuff like that that was just like random like that.
The most random thing was when you mentioned that the inspiration behind your name was an actual moth sitting on your laptop. I was like, that's clever, actually.
Yeah, that was. Everyone's like, that's like a made up story. I'm like, sadly, it's not. It's just like, I don't know what. I don't want to use like this name. And then it just because I had so many moths in my house, they're like gone now. But yeah, it just landed on the laptop screen. I was like, good enough.
Did you check?
That's literally.
Did you check if there are other moths?
At the time there wasn't. Now there's like 10 of them, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'm waiting to get hit with like a cease and desist order or something stupid, like something stupid like that. Like, oh, we copyrighted the name. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm not making money. Like, I'm still gonna use it. Like, there was like a punk band, and then there was another guy named Moth, and I was like, that's a dumb name. just use Moth. But yeah, I think there's a doom metal band now. I'm pretty sure I predate them, so I got that going. And then there's like a bunch of like, if you go on Beatport, there's like a bunch of house producers named Moth, or if it's one guy who just makes an exceptionally huge amount of house music. But yeah, because like there's like one playlist on YouTube, and it's like 78 tracks, and they're all mine. And I'm like, oh my god, I made this much trash, and like some of them are like pretty dated. Where I was like, I can't believe this is still on the internet. Like, oh my god.
But personally, the stuff I listen to from Moth's entire discography is probably at least 5 years old. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, some of it doesn't age well. Anything that tried to go hard and was pretty bad. But the deeper tracks, I go back. I'm like, yeah, this is all right.
Some of them were so controversial because people outright call you Satanist.
I'm more just a nihilist if anything. No, I used to when the Legion EP came out, I got like attacked by like evangelicals, and I was just like, whatever. I don't really care.
What did they say? Like, take your stuff down.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Like, you're going to hell, blah blah blah. And I'm like, all right, beat it, loser. And then they're like making posts or like trying to report me on Facebook. I'm like, you can't report me for being Satanist, and I'm not even a Satanist. But I'm just selling like just edge. It's like edginess. That's all I was doing. I mean, that died out pretty much after Legion. I would still use like satanic samples around them just because I like horror movies, but that's about it.
Yeah. Would you say that you're still as edgy as you were before?
Yeah, if not worse. That's just how that's just my personality. Just take it, I'm a habitual line stepper.
Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing.
It can be pretty bad, but I'm the person who you can't take anywhere because he's immediately going to poke the elephant. Like, I'm immediately addressing it. Like,
people are different. I guess as long as we accept that, I guess that's fine.
Yeah.
So, coming back to the last question I have.
Okay.
It's not a question. It's more like, do you have any message to the community or anything you would want to say?
Don't bother me. No.
No. Let me finish the question. Who are excited about Moth and who are actually waiting for you to release stuff? What would you say to them?
I have no idea. I mean, it's kind of taken it out of. I mean, like somehow the community's taken it out of my hands, even though well, in the sense that like it's going beyond what I did. Um, like, cause I like to just quit shit, but it's I guess thanks for keeping it alive. I don't know necessarily that it should, but no, I'm kidding. Yeah, I don't know, it's been fun. So I mean, like, it's kind of like thanks for, I guess, supporting me somehow. I don't really get it, but it's one of those things where like it's almost like a legacy. I don't know. I'm just glad I have that to some extent. Just like I can look back at it and be like, oh, people are still talking about my garbage music. Like that's probably like the best part. It's just looking back at it's just like looking back at old stuff and then just like reading YouTube comments where people are like, come back, and I'm like, yeah, maybe, and then I'm like an hour later like, nah, I probably won't.
You play with emotions,
like,
Jerry.
It's literally like just like a roller coaster. Like, yeah, I think I'm gonna come back, and then it's like, no, I'm not.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, like when I did the show in Oregon, I came back and I was like, I'm gonna do another album, and it's gonna be crazy. I'm gonna put all this work into it. I did one song, and I was like, oh, I'm not done. I mean, I still have some stuff on there, but I mean, like, it was just like, as fast as the inspiration came, it left.
Understandable. And since you like to do things when you feel like doing it, it's even more understandable. So
Yeah.
no pressure. We'll be waiting.
Yeah.
And hopefully, like the mask, you dig it out. The inspiration will somehow emerge from things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's all I had. Do you have any questions? Anything you want to share or ask me?
No, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. Other than thanks for doing this and keeping up the, I guess, like being the spokesman of Minatory scene. I don't know.
To be honest, I'm doing it because I have no idea how things are, and nobody's doing it, so I kind of had to do it because nobody else would do it for me. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it.
I like doing it.
It's yeah, I mean, it's just weird because it was like no one was giving it any attention. That's why I was just like, well, I don't really care anymore. And then so I've seen the video where you did the book, and then like, oh, cool. I was like, finally, this is someone's putting considerable thought into it rather than it's just being ignored just because it's not commercial music.
Yeah, I think too many people are busy making this stuff instead of just
enjoying it for what it is. Yeah,
like you said, it's a race.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
No, it absolutely is. Like it's always seemed odd to me because that's almost like majority of electronic music. It's got a very short shelf life, and people are still going back and listening to stuff that I put out like 2015. Like, oh, this is great, and I'm like, it's just like a weird thing to me because like even as a person who actively listened to that type of music, like it was like that for me. Even I'm like, well, you get over that song, then you just kind of never return to it. But people will somehow return to my music, and I'm like, that's insane.
And the fun part is, the older it gets, the better it gets. It's like a jar of pickle.
I mean, you could have went fine wine on that, but sure, pickles.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I like it more when I listen to stuff which is old. Maybe it's nostalgia. I don't know. It could be that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here, Jerry.
No problem. Smash that like button. No.
All of that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like saying those things. They sound very.
It's awful. I don't like doing that either.
Yeah. So it's like, do it if you want to, do it if you don't want to. Up to you.
Well, it's just annoying when as soon as you watch a YouTube video and it's like, make sure you hit like, and you're like, oh my god, you're already like berating me with this. Like, I'm not even gonna watch this shit now. Like, it's so awful. So awful.
Well, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.
Oh, I will.